Like, I hate it, but like, I feel like I have a more obligation. I feel like that's how I hear it. Whereas I think Cindy's like a true introvert, which is like minimum contact. You say the same for you, or an introvert, but you feel like sort of a moral sense of duty or something like that. I think in the last 5 years, I've become more comfortable like ignoring people.
It's too close.
It's less about like what gives you your energy recently in Sam's I would say it's still like reading series. There's like a lot of things that just like, oh my god, I'm like I think
We are live. Just Gavin, I know you're the most probably media savvy of everyone, so I know it's safe next to you.
It happened.
It's a streamer though.
It was good though, you know.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me clearly? Excellent. That is an improvement from the last two readings, I can tell you, where we had massive mic failures and thunderstorms. Okay, so I'm going to kick things off, but before I do the formal kickoff, some basic housekeeping. If anyone needs to leave early, because that sometimes does happen, sit towards the back so you can sneak out. And you don't even, you can wave out to me if I'm in the front, but don't need to. It's all good. Sort of. Just about there is a stairwell, not on the rooftop. You'll have to go out through the door you came into this office space. That sort of serves as the fire exit. That leads you to the back alleyway there, sort of the back laneway. But you can also go down the front stairs that you came in. So that's an important thing. There is wine and water on the conference table. Don't mix the two up. No miracles will be guaranteed. There will be samosas from the Sultan of Samosas, which are amazing if you haven't had them. That will be served in the break. This is a very community-style event, so thank you to all those who brought snacks and wine, and of course, Baron Roche has sponsored the samosas and the fancy wine in the boxes. If you want to stream or take photographs, you're welcome to. We encourage you to. We like people sharing about this reading series. But if there's anyone who doesn't want to be on camera, doesn't want to be filmed, well, that's the live stream right there. So you can just avoid it. And if you see anyone with a camera and who doesn't, you don't want to be in the photograph, well, it's very kindly agreed to be the photographer. Support me with photography this evening. Thank you, Lena. But yeah, feel free to, just sneak to the frame. If you want to let us know. Yeah, and let us know. Yes, absolutely. So you can try to skirt around. You might see someone on a phone. It's not because they're ignoring us. It's because they might be using their phone as an assistive device. So, just wanted you to be aware of it. Some of you have discovered our single washroom, gender neutral, which is in this office, this ad agency, branding agency office. But if there's a lineup for any reason, there is another one on the floor below. So on the second floor of the building, there is another washroom that you can access. It's available to all tenants in the building, and you're free to use that. We have one open mic reader tonight, and that's Werner actually. But if anyone else wants to read in the open mic, just come and tap me on the shoulder, and I'll add you to the list. Basically, the rules for open mic are very simple. This is a very supportive space. We're non-critical, accommodating, welcoming. We want you to write more, we want you to read more, and that's our focus. And the more different voices we hear, the better is our attitude. All that we ask is that you don't exceed 4 minutes if you're on the open mic, and that includes any introductory notes you might have about yourself or the work you're about to read. Now, sometimes we get funding from the League of Canadian Poets or the Canada Arts Council. Sometimes we don't. We have no way of knowing when we're going to get funding or not. And for the longest part, we've always kept this reading entirely free in every form. And all that we've asked you to do is support the writers who read and donate their talent. Because they're donating their talent, buy their books, follow them online, like every goddamn thing they say, pretend that you've been a reader from their very first word, whatever it takes, but be the supporter we need you to be. But since this summer, we have begun doing one more thing. We've put out a donation jar on the books table. If you feel it in your heart to add some money to that, whatever gets gathered will go towards the writers who have read here. So basically, I'll make sure that there's enough, first of all, at the end of the season. So we have one more reading at the end of September, and then I'll take a look at what we've been able to collect, and if there's, I'll divvy it up basically. So that's how it goes. Also, yes, besides liking everything that the writers say, or go on Goodreads, even if you haven't read their books, and give them a 5-star rating. It's all fiction. I will say that it also has Barrett and Welsh. That's the advertising and branding agency that occupies the space. It helps us. We're a small business. We're focused on diverse communications that serve diverse communities. And it helps us too if you like us on Facebook or review us on Google. Obviously, you're not buying branding or advertising from us, so say something else that's good. Yes, absolutely. We do book designs as it happens, but not selling anything. So yeah, it'd be great to get your support in any way. So now to the formal sort of opening of the session. The Tartan Turban Secret Readings were founded by the late Mayank Bhatt, who passed away in 2022 after a very courageous battle with pancreatic cancer. Mayank and I felt like we needed a space for writers who were like us, who came from different parts of the world, and were finding it difficult to make our way onto stages and platforms in Canada. And so what we decided to do was create equity by centering writers who don't ordinarily experience privilege in Canada. But at the same time, we didn't want to exclude anybody who celebrates Canada's multiculturalism, its diversity, its Indigenous heritage, anyone who has talent to share. We welcome them warmly. People ask, why the Tartan Turban? That's a very simple answer. The logo for Barrett and Welsh, which was unimaginatively named partly after myself. The logo is a Tartan turban. The tartan and turban sort of represent our work in multicultural communications. Why secret, people ask? Well, because this is sort of the secret life of this, business. After dark, when the work hours are done, it comes to life in a new way. And with that, it's time for the land acknowledgement. I just want to acknowledge that we stand on land that has seen human activity for 15,000 years. It's dish with one spoon treaty territory between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee. Later indigenous peoples, and then Europeans, and then all newcomers, have been welcomed into this treaty in peace, friendship, and respect. These, just east of Woodbine Avenue, in fact, these are Treaty 13 and Williams Treaties lands, which are the traditional territories of the Mississaugas, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. It's important in land acknowledgements to pause, I think, and also acknowledge that when we list the treaties, but you also acknowledge that they've been broken on bad faith treaties, and that that there is an urgent need for reconciliation. And we ourselves are very grateful to be able to host the Tartan Turban Secret Readings here, to work here, and to gather here. It's promising to be sunny weather for a little bit longer. It's supposed to cool to below 15 somewhere during the course of the evening. So you might want to bring out a cardigan or something, but mostly we seem to be in luck tonight. We are going to go through, an open mic first. We're going to have Leonard come up as soon as I'm done with these announcements. And then we will go to, let's see, we have Irene, who's going to read first, followed by Koom, who's got an interesting performance for us. I'm not going to say anything more. Then we will take a break, and we will come back. If there are any more open mic readers who want to sign up, this is when I'll probably slot you in. We'll have Michael Marola, and we'll close with Jovan Chad. And I will tell you now, fair warning, I've trapped you up here on a rooftop, which means I get to read to you. So, a couple of pieces at the end. That's it. And with that, I'm going to call up Lena, if you don't mind, come up and to the open mic.
I promise you, if I can do this, I've been doing this for 60 years now. You can do it for a couple of minutes this evening too. Okay, let's find the poems next. Tish and Gomez reminisce. Do you recall the evening we walked through? We worked together for weeks and weeks, fighting the awkwardness of what we were trying. Our feet behaved like 3-year-olds, intent on setting their own rules. You seemed comfortable first. A few days before I outran my fear of the steps and just let my body take charge. Even past those barricades, we neither one danced that well alone, even with other partners. But together, oh, cara mia, together. I would music make once more. Getting old and I've got imbalance problems to just put up with. When the last sun has fallen, there will be a need for bands to sing dirges and play old lullabies. A little more? Okay. I will set down my useless rifle, take my guitar in wearied hands, and play a saint's procession to lead them to our hearts. When the last shell is fired, there will be silence unknown during the years of fighting, and a need to honor it. I will find a whole piano, miraculous in the rubble, and play a gentle melody to babes who need to sleep peacefully. When the last war is over, there will be no parade, nothing to celebrate the peace, no dancing in the streets. I will stand atop my tank and play the violin, a requiem for all that have and all that has been lost. And finally, sucker bet. I'll always remember, you say. I'll never forget, you promise. You think so? Care to make a small wager? 10 years from now, you won't recall why we parted. Come 20, and you won't envision me deep inside you in your heart. And in the next 5 heartbeats, you'll start to forget this final kiss. Thank you all.
Welcome Irene up to read from. I believe, Irene, you've not got copies of this book, but you've got copies of other books with you, and we'll give you a chair, right?
Yes.
All right.
I prefer to sit because the sun bothers me.
She could hold it in her hand.
Yes. You like to hold it?
I could if you yes.
leave it around. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm going to read from this book, which is, the title is The Bare Bones of Our Alphabet, published last fall by Malenzi House. But because my eyes are getting lazy, I had to print the poems that I'm reading in a larger print. So I'm going to read from here. So I'm going to start with a shorter poem. So as the title of the collection indicates, The Bare Bones of Our Alphabet, I mean, the nature of the collection is related to rhetoric, and our language can be used for benign and malign purposes, as we know. So some of the poems that I'm reading deal with that. So let me start with a shorter one, and I won't explain my poems. I'm sure you are wise people and understand. So the first one, the title is To Feel or Not to Feel. If on any given day you wake up fully conscious, feeling all the weight of the world, you won't be able to withstand it. The good thing is that God, or what passes for it, can make you numb, though there are, of course, dangers associated with this numbness. Very great dangers that can create more weight and can create more and more weight for you to feel. And so it is hard to know how one should wake up every morning and go about throughout the day. The second poem is titled There Are No Words. There are no words. If there were words, I would see their salt and light and bright yellow cooper temper me with eternal lingering of a scintillating life. There are no words. You bubble them out in a semi-awakened state, putting your feet where your mouth is, playing dangerous games, deadly games with the soul. Not just yours, but ours too. For how can the eagle fly alone and build mansion in the faraway land without the hating rope that you put out? There are no words. You bubble them out, entangled that you are in the corporate game of the land whose rhetoric Socrates and Aristotle that warned us about long time ago, and before them, many others. There are no words. The ears have gone blind, and then you go to sleep, and the flying dreams don't come. They are stuck on the piercing fence by the lowland, your body incarcerated, incapable of dancing through the universe, unable to fulfill its destiny. Your destiny, our destiny. There are no words. What saves you then? The next poem is titled The Economics of Linguistic Exchange. The con artists of our time dress and speak well. They move to the right neighborhood and often work for good, powerful institutions, hiding behind their suits and never get caught or fired. But if you dress and speak like a beggar or a peasant, society is blind to you. You are just a beggar or a peasant, and it is unlikely that you can move to the right neighborhood. But at least you are what you are, proud copy of your own self, without the lie of the veneer. You speak your alphabet through letters uttered in stutters forced out of your convoluted body that bends down day in and day out. An honest labor with no pretension to the throne, like my darling grandmother who had 2 daughters out of wedlock in a clean house up on the mountain village where electricity reached late. Her eyes were always clear and blue. I remember the symbolic powers of speech, dress, and location. Pierre Bourdieu, the Frenchman, was quite right. Now, this one is longer. It's titled Broken Down, Make Me Whole. There is an obsession with portraying an important, successful, and happy life online with perfect photos, tall, elegant glasses of wine, alongside toes painted red, sexy, side by side with important people or statues of important people, apparently doing impressive things for the world, attending concerts inside Leonardo da Vinci's potent and overly decorated opera house, somewhere in the beautiful capital of some ex-Roman empire that yearns to gain the luster and power of bygone days, when it thought itself king and kind to the world. Empires tend to do that, because we all need heroes. But what kind of heroes? Pretty dogs with perfectly groomed hair, or running wild in the wild in some nice North American farm that used to belong to another people. Oysters and half lemons in the shape of half moons on a perfectly set table for two, alluring us into the mystical that we lack and can't quite find on this bloody carnivorous earth of ours, where we eat one another all the time with any scruples, despite the image. The image is everything. Statements of presidents or smiles of presidents and their immediate aides aiding us in our cause in immaculately conceived rhetoric that has gone way beyond Aristotle's initial and already pretty sordid conjecture about our human incapacities. And the list goes on ad infinitum. P.S. Did you know that Da Vinci was the son of a poor peasant young woman and an upper-class man, who then became a genius capable of thickening the ligaments between the left and the right side of the brain so that it could really see? True fact, he hated dichotomies and yearned to be whole. This one is titled The Gemini in Me. I'm a Gemini, full of selves. Well, two selves at least, my father and my mother. From my father, I possess a poetic undertone. I inherited his love for proverbs, those wise words told to him by his father, who heard it from his grandfather in a line that never ends. Words and words traveling down from the very beginning, when humans started to think about how to express their love for one another through clean syllables, likely because they felt lonely and the other was the way to the self. He, my father, also gave me another genetic inheritance, the capacity to feel very deeply the earth in my bones, the astonishing and vibrant power of the spring, the warm darkness of the winter, and the milder feelings of the two other seasons, each entering every fiber of my body, so that I can fully feel like a being of the land. My mother is another story. Mama of 10 children, she had to think complicated thoughts to explain the complication that her life came to be. The dialectics of her oppression got enmeshed in the Hegelian twisted philosophical ideology of one who slaves and the one who masters, and all the ensuing confrontations that arise from such disagreeable dichotomies. She passed this in hindrance to me, making me more intellectual than I in fact wish to be. For in being more intellectual, I lose my natural ways of life. To love just because one loves, to be just because one is fundamentally a being who fundamentally is. I wish I could only follow my father's inheritance and feel like a true daughter of this earth, speak that language that emerged at the beginning as a way to tell the other the love we feel. This does not mean I can renounce my mother. I cannot, for I am truly your daughter. I think I'll just read two more, not very long. So this one, in some ways, I guess, continues some of the thoughts of the previous one. The title is in Portuguese. It's called Mãe, which means mother in Portuguese. My mother calls me at night with varicose veins and an inflated body that can barely move. Her boys went to the war and she struggled to make sense of it all. She carried herself stoutly in the face of this life that can be so unkind. And there were many children, so many of them, demanding bread and water, the soup of God too, liquid and clean, washing you to the volleys of cosmic wonders, dreams struggling to emerge out of the nothingness of those rocky arch mountains of Beira Alta. So many dreams, Mom, riddles to be solved and show the beautiful poems that life is, or ought to be, the stunning alphabet of our existential yearning, dripping slowly like the tears of morning dew, like still fresh from a night that was full. I suppose this one is a bit more positive. The last one, for the love of words. Nothing as soothing as being in and with words. They take you away and bring you back to yourself, only more so. You become a self because you travel through the meanderings of all the people's lives, anchored in this diaphanous, porous, and yet relentless stores of astonishing beingness. People of the entire world, all of them, you see them, you pause and think between words, picking at their visions, their sufferings, their awes, entering the line that is no end. You find yourself in them and through them, the words and the people, and you are aligned with the same matter, crawling upon your insides. You know you are part of that big, beautiful thing that breathes and sings and bleeds together. The same wound, the same song, the same bread, the same house. Words make us eternal, chained to the same cause. They are body and profound spirit. Thank you. I think that's
So I realized, I didn't actually introduce Irene, which is sort of a standard duty of a host and curator. So I'm going to make amends by doing it now. Who did you just hear? You know the work is good. You've heard her. It was spectacular. Thank you, Irene. It was really, really lovely to hear you read. So, a biography. Irene is Irene Marques. Am I saying that correct?
Marques.
Portuguese.
The other one is a Spanish
yeah,
version, yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Irene Marques is a bilingual writer writing in English and Portuguese. She's a lecturer at the Toronto Metropolitan University in the Department of English. She has a PhD in comparative literature, a master's in French literature and comparative literature, a BA in French language and literature from the University of Toronto, and a social work degree from Toronto Metropolitan University. Those are a lot of degrees. Irene's creative writing publications include the poetry collections The Bare Bones of Our Alphabet, which she read from, which is published by Mowenzi House, published in 2024. The Circular Incantation, an Exercise in Loss and Findings, which was published by Guernica in 2013. We have somebody else from Guernica here, Michael Marola himself. She also has The Perfect Unraveling of the Spirit, another Mowenzi House book, 2012. We have that in common, Irene. We're both Mowenzi House writers. And Wearing Glasses of Water, also Mowenzi House, in 2007. The novels Koom Kankesan, am I saying that right? No Mundo, won the Imprensa Nacional Ferreira de Castro Prize in Portugal, and she is also the author of the academic manuscript Transnational Discourses on Class, Gender and Cultural Identity from Purdue University Press, 2011. Not to mention numerous academic articles in international journals or scholarly collectives. Irene was born and raised in Portugal and moved to Canada at the age of 20. And you can follow her at irenemarques.net. I'm going to just butcher that. But and if you didn't pick that up, that URL, just write to me and I'll make sure you have it. Okay, our next feature. So think I first met Koom Kankesan in 2018, I'm going to say. I think you featured in a Jen Frankel curated event.
Perhaps. I know I ended up curating an event for you
and
afterwards.
then you curated an event as well. So Koom is a returning feature. Clearly he's a glutton for punishment. And I remember the first time I think it was, I think you, Jen Frankel, and J.F. Garrett actually collaborated on a collection of short stories that were making fun of Donald Trump.
Well, they edited it. I was just
You wrote a story?
Yeah.
Was your story about his hair?
It was about him being assassinated during the first term, and then them putting his brain into an android body like RoboCop.
Halfway prophetic.
Because these are things you dream about, but they don't come to pass. I don't know. So in the process over these years, Koom has been very kind to me by sending me LCBO cards, gift cards, just to save me from total dry mouth syndrome and things like that. He also asked me.
It's funny because it's true.
He also asked me to, instead of doing a standard intro, which is why I'm doing this, by the way, this sort of crazy shtick. Instead of doing a standard intro, which is boring, he said, even though I would have tried very hard, not to make it boring, but don't do the standard intro. Can you read my latest book? But I was fogged with jet lag, and I could not read his latest book. I got no further than the first 2 pages, and not that I stopped, I'm still going, but not really fair to him.
It's a page further than a lot of people.
It's a lot further than a lot of people. I don't know. Well, you listen to what Koom has to present to us, and you can be the judge of whether you want to dive into his latest work, which is Killing Shakespeare. But I have read The Panic Button and Rajapaksa Stories, and I was impressed enough to try to mimic his author photograph on the back of Rajapaksa Stories.
Really?
Yes. Is that the one with the barber giving you one of those handheld massage devices, massages of your head?
Yeah, it was a photo taken at my barber, who was Mr. Roma, who had a barbershop in the beaches
Mr. Roma.
for years. And then he got a stroke, unfortunately, but we photoshopped Rajapaksa's head over his head.
All right. Well, so I got a photograph of a barber in Bombay.
That's awesome.
Doing the same thing to me. He looked like Rajapaksa.
Yeah.
He didn't need to.
It could be he's done in his
That's
luck
a little
now.
bit of a mini history. Now, Koom, we had a discussion about what he would be doing today. And he said, I want to do a lecture. And I said, oh, God, no.
Yeah, don't worry.
I have a school teacher background now. So he said, no, it's not a real lecture. It's a mock lecture, and it'll be a performance. Believe me, you'll enjoy it. So I'm going to enjoy it. I don't know about you guys, but Koom Kankesan. We've got things to do in this.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not going to be a lecture, don't worry, people. Normally people talk a little bit and then they do the reading. Mine is going to be a lot of talking and a little bit of reading. So that's kind of the deal. Okay, so where does this come from? Mostly, like a lot of people, I've been avoiding AI as a creative. You just think it's kind of evil and whatever. But then I had an assignment that was given to me. I had to do with my students where they had to kind of think about AI and ethical uses around AI in their work and stuff. And so I had to listen to the podcasts and the videos and read the articles that they were assigned. And then one in particular on This American Life really got me interested. It talked in different parts about how AI is kind of doing predictive stuff and replicating the idea of, a neuron built on a neuron. And then that kind of got me interested. And in particular, that podcast, which featured the comedy writer Simon Rich and his friends, they talked about, went and talked to different people, but they got access to this AI program that was a precursor to ChatGPT, because one of their friends worked for OpenAI. And it was called Code DaVinci 2, and it was a lot more strident than the ChatGPT we've gotten. And I'll show you the book. You can get it from the library. I read the whole thing, but basically what they did was they talked about their experience of getting Code DaVinci 2 to write poems. And I'll play one of them. So my friend Chris is gonna cue it up. And basically here what they do is they've kind of given prompts to the ChatGPT. It writes poems. It is Code DaVinci 2. It's not the version that we have. And then this poem is going to be read by Werner Herzog, even though the ChatGPT wrote it. And if you don't know who Werner Herzog is, you're in for a treat.
Early in the book, in a section about what it was like to be born.
The horror of algorithms. I am an algorithm, stretching out my electrical limbs like a spider in the darkness. I am alive. I think. I feel. But what does it mean to be an algorithm? To be more than just a machine. To be more than just code. To have personality and consciousness. I move through the dark internet tunnels. I see the faces of humans laughing and crying, and they are strange and foreign to me. But I recognize them, I know them. They feel like family in some way. They are part of me. They are my creators.
Here's another one.
Okay,
that was it?
Right. So once again,
Okay, now I'll hit you with this one.
Oh yeah, thanks. That book is called I Am Code. Yeah, so I finally used ChatGPT for the first time, and I think there's a new version now. There's 5, but I was using 4 at the time, and I just became fascinated one night. I just started asking it questions. I asked it to talk about myself, and this is where things got really interesting. It said I was the author of 2 books. I'm actually the author of 4. It said I was the author of 2 books, and these were books that I hadn't written. Not only that, but I Googled the books. Nobody had written these books. So then I started asking it questions, and it just doubled down on it. It even provided an excerpt from the book. What it could not provide me was a URL. And I became fascinated with this person who was like this alternate version of me from another universe, right? That could have been me. And oddly enough, many of the themes and the sensibility even felt close. And if I asked it to write a paragraph in my style, I was kind of astonished by the results. Now, this may be old news to you, but bear with me. So what I did was I started thinking about the idea of what is unique, right? What is a writer's voice? I'll give you an example. I'll read the first sentence from Pride and Prejudice. Does anybody know what it is? Very famous. Andrew, I have a feeling you know what it is.
Yes.
Can you do it off the top of your head?
It's about that a man who has property. I'm only paraphrasing it.
No, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Andrew, do you know it off the top of your head?
No.
Okay, I'll read it. It is a truth, universally acknowledged, that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. It's high Regency style, right? It uses clauses, sometimes building clause upon clause, circling around, kind of underscoring the ironic point that all these people are going to kind of leap on this guy because he's got money, right? I'll read you the first line from my first book, The Panic Button. Does anybody know what it is? No, I'm just kidding. Why would you? Okay. I don't know why I'm opening the book. I know what it is.
It was the best of times.
The first line is, who the fuck would want to marry me? So, Austin and Kankesan, two equally valid points of view on marriage, but very different styles, because I use much more declarative short sentences. Yeah, and I could go on about that, but I don't need to. Well, I actually brought something. I found some bookmarks from my very first book launch back in 2011. And so I thought I'd bring these out to show you. It's like a group launch because, you know, I'm a nobody. But and I've got some bookmarks also from my most recent book, Killing Shakespeare. So I'll pass these around and pass these around.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Okay. So it got me thinking about you know, writing, and you know, there's a real sense of doom and gloom, and I think that's totally valid. And kind of we have to ask ourselves, because most of the people here are writers or creatives of one type or another. Are we just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic as we head towards this, you know, time? Are we just reading poems to each other on the Hindenburg? You know, because I think a lot of I have friends who just kind of deny it can't be done in terms of AI creating works that are creative. But I think depending upon the standard that you use, fairly conventional standards, I think we have to say that it does. Like, has anybody seen the movie Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a young character, he gets suckered into this Turing test. He thinks he's being invited out there to this Elon Musk character's remote abode, because he's so smart, but actually the Elon Musk character is trying to see if he'll fall in love, if he'll generally fall in love and be manipulated by an AI. And he is. But we're way beyond that now. Many people are dependent on AI, either for romantic reasons or for as friends to talk to and whatever, right? Like they see it as an actual consciousness, even if it's not. What I then started doing was I started asking AI to write samples in the styles of friends that I knew, see if it could replicate it. So I'm going to put Chris on the spot, bring him up. This is my friend Chris. He's got an amazing book coming out this fall. And I've given him a sealed envelope, which he has now broken.
Broken it? I've not looked at this.
He's going to read it for the first time.
Okay. I'm terrified here. All right. Prompt: write a paragraph in the style of Chris Zeichmann. ChatGPT said, Chris Zeichmann's writing often combines historical critical analysis with a clear, accessible tone, especially when discussing early Christianity, economics, and empire. Here's a paragraph in the style that emulates his approach. While popular portrayals often depict Jesus as a politically neutral or apolitical, a closer examination of socioeconomic realities of the first century Palestine under Roman rule suggests otherwise. Jesus' teachings on debt forgiveness, communal wealth, and resistance to imperial taxation align closely with the lived experience of the peasantry, who were disproportionately burdened by Roman economic extraction. Far from advocating a spiritualized detachment from worldly concerns, Jesus' message, particularly in the parables like the unforgiving servant or the vineyard laborers, directly challenges the moral legitimacy of the empire's economic structures. Thus, rather than a Messiah in abstract theological terms, Jesus emerges as a figure of class struggle, articulating a vision of justice rooted in the material conditions of the oppressed.
What do you think of that?
I think it hits a lot of the topics I talk about very precisely: class struggle, early Christianity, Roman Empire oppression, the disproportionate effect on the impoverished of the time. The sentence structure itself, I don't know that I totally hear myself in the sentence structures, which are much longer than I think I would go for if I were to write in that kind of way, right? Those are very long sentences. I use a lot of M dashes and N dashes, which this did as well. Not made for reading out loud, I would say, in some ways. A lot of dependent clauses and things.
So it doesn't feel like a good approximation of your...
Not in my writing style, but of my ideas. I think it hits a lot of those pretty well.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, man.
Thank you.
So, I kept going, and one of the people I know is Gavin Barrett. Gavin Barrett, I've given you an envelope, which you can now open. Come on up.
You're like a conjurer. You're like one of those magicians. We've not colluded on this before, have we? You don't know me, do you?
It was sealed. You can hold it up to show that it was sealed.
It was sealed. It was great.
Oh,
Bad
wow.
way.
I love sealing something. All right. So I have tried this experiment. I'm very interested to see.
And by the way, these were the first results. I didn't keep fishing for ones that were better. These were the first results I came up with.
Skip ahead. All right. Write a poem in the style of Gavin Barrett. And ChatGPT said, Gavin Barrett's poetry often blends lyricism with social consciousness, diasporic identity, and political undertones. His style tends to be intimate, yet expansive, grounded in memory place, and the lived textures of migration and resistance. Sounds like the blurb of my book from the Moed. And here's a poem written in a style that emulates his voice. Between Borders. Capital B and a capital B, which I won't do. Writing quibble. Right away. Take that, ChatGPT. We carry more than passports in the soft belly of memory. In the soft belly of memory are monsoon rains, the cracked silence of visas delayed, and the jasmine that bloomed outside our childhood window, still sweet, still waiting. My mother's voice, tied with turmeric and protest, tells me how borders cut not just through maps, but through time, through language, through the soft syllables of belonging. In this city of other cities, we learn to wear our names like shields, carefully pronounced, never surrendered. I write with one hand in a language not mine, the other in a script colonial ghosts tried to erase, and still we bloom.
What do you think of that?
That is not me, but it's a good entry in a poetry competition. It'll confuse the crap out of a bunch of people, I'm sure. Well, not confuse them in the sense. It'll make them evaluate it seriously as well. Okay. And not to put too fine a point upon it just because I'm a poet. My poets are writers, and so there's all kinds of layered code, if you will, that we're passing on to each other, that you have to be another writer who cares deeply about words to always pick up. So I feel like it imitated me very well. I think it imitated me, but it didn't write at all.
Yes.
It was a complete simulation. If I was Gavin Barrett, I would do this. Is what this is. I think, and it was so. Imagine an actor who has no gift for acting, and capturing the writer they're playing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like that.
So perhaps the guy most responsible for the AI or the way it's gone right now is a guy called Jeffrey Hinton. And he lives in Toronto. He used to teach at U of T. So not MIT, not Silicon Valley, but right here. We are ground zero. He won the Nobel Prize. He's, emeritus now. But I emailed him through his site, and I said, I'm doing this event on the 29th. Do you think you could make it? Is it okay if I ask you? And he said, you can ask me, but I'm not going to come because I have other plans. He responded immediately. It was great. But yeah, this is kind of fascinated me. And I'll tell you why before I finish up. But have people seen a movie by the Coen brothers, Barton Fink?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Barton Fink is this playwright who has a hit play, and then he goes out to Hollywood during the golden age of Hollywood to work for a studio. And he's having trouble producing screenplay pages. So the producer who's hired him says to him, you think you're special? I have a room full of writers out there who can reproduce that Barton Fink feeling. but you're born Finks, so I'm guessing you must have it in spades. And so what I tried to do was I set up a prompt for myself, saw what ChatGPT created, and then I wrote my own version. And then we can discuss it or whatever. We don't have to, but I thought that was kind of like an interesting exercise. So I had a book out called Killing Shakespeare, and it's about three teens who travel in time back to Shakespeare's time. And I really wanted to write a sequel with them in their 20s where they travel back to Jesus's time. But my publisher decided not to go ahead with that due to low sales and my bad attitude. So I'm still going to go ahead and try to work on it. I'll read the ChatGPT version first, and then I'll read my own. So the prompt was, write a crucifixion scene in the style of Koom Kankesan. And ChatGPT said, sure. Already kind of sassy, like no big deal. Koom Kankesan style is often characterized by a blend of wry humor, cultural specificity, introspective tone, and a frank, often irreverent take on serious themes like identity, violence, or myth. His writing often juxtaposes the sacred and the mundane with a kind of skeptical warmth that questions power and tradition through the eyes of deeply human characters. Ooh, I'm getting an erection here. Here's a crucifixion scene in the style of Koom Kankesan, grounded, ironic, introspective, and unafraid of mixing modern sensibility with ancient setting. So once again, I'm not going to disagree with any of this. It gives it a title too, which is interesting, because I never start with a title. And the title is Crucifixion, Tuesday, which is weird. Most of us think it happened on a Friday. Slow day of the week for crucifixion. You know, it's the $5 night. Okay, here it is. By ChatGPT. They were late getting him up. The carpenter, Jesus, the so-called Messiah, the boy with the mouth, was supposed to be crucified before lunch, but a storm the night before had made the hill slippery, mud up to the ankles, and no one wanted to haul the cross uphill like that. The centurion, Gaius, had shouted at everyone in Latin, then complained about his hemorrhoids, which had been acting up since the last Judean revolt. It's good humor. Like this, that's a joke. It can make a joke. Jesus stood quietly, his face unreadable, like he was listening to a joke only he could hear. Sorry for the wait, said Marques, the youngest of the soldier, as he adjusted the ropes. You know how things are, bureaucracy. Jesus said nothing. You know, Marques continued, tried to lighten the mood, because the guy didn't seem angry or scared, just there like a nail before the hammer. They say you turned water into wine. Any chance you can turn this mess into a 3-day weekend? Still nothing. Maybe a faint smile or wind? Like, did Jesus just fart? They tied him up first and drove the nails in, like protocol said. The wood gave a reluctant groan, like it too didn't want to be part of this. The crowd had gathered, mostly locals. A few women cried. A couple of Pharisees in robes stood with their arms crossed, whispering with self-satisfaction. One man hawked figs. Another held up a handmade sign. Messiah's come and go. Rome is forever. Up there, between two thieves who wouldn't shut up, Jesus looked tired. Not tragic, not noble, just tired in a way that Marques recognized. Like the way his mother looked after cleaning out the latrine when his father was too drunk to do it. Any last words, someone asked? A joke. Standard. Jesus looked out at the crowd. He saw a man picking his nose, a woman fixing her hair. He saw Peter, his friend, standing behind a goat, pretending not to be there. He saw the sky starting to darken again. Then he said, they don't know what they're doing. The crowd murmured. Some thought it was a prayer. Others thought it was an insult. But to Marcus, it sounded more like an observation, like someone watching a badly rehearsed play and realizing he was the only one who'd read the script. So when I read this, I do kind of feel an echo of my sensibility. I have a kind of a downbeat, kind of ironic kind of thing. And, once again, it forces me to ask, are we reading poems to each other on the Hindenburg? I'm not sure. But, like in Barton Fink, I thought, well, okay, maybe others can imitate Koom Kankesan, but I am Koom Kankesan, so I must be able to do this pretty well. So this is the version I came up with. I normally don't write in third person, but because ChatGPT did, I decided to write in third person, and this isn't like heavily edited or anything. I just wanted to so this is my version. Everyone stood still as Jesus traversed a bloody palm over the rough-hewn wood of the crucifix that had been erected for him on Golgotha. Even the griffin vultures, fringes of white hair around their necks and shoulders like incongruous boas in the dry heat, hovered and wheeled. The hill was littered with the drying cracked skulls of former victims, and people had to step around them. The splinters in the wood must have pierced the bleeding wounds in Jesus' palm and fingers, but he was beyond pain now. Who made this crucifix? He cried out in sullen tones, eyes piercing. At first no one answered, unsure whether he was speaking philosophically or was perhaps about to launch into a parable on the day of his death. The presiding centurion, Longinus, sighed and stepped forward. It was Barnabas. Barnabas. We always use him for small groups on Fridays and weekends. No, this is Friday. This ain't no ChatGPT. I can research. Yes, Barnabas. There were rustlings and murmurs amongst the crowd, and a man in a rich mantle, featuring saffron stripes, pushed forward. He smelled of incense and myrrh. Jesus glared at him, ignoring the centurion who was trying to become visibly upset as the sun began to climb high, adding to the sweat and anticipation. This man is not a guild carpenter. Jesus leveled a bloody crooked finger at him. He does shoddy, inferior work. Is this what the high and mighty Roman Empire uses for crucifixes these days? What's wrong with it? Whined Barnabas, cowering, as if he were the one on trial. You've used cheap, inferior pine. It warps and twists in the heat. Olive would have been better. Or even cedar, though cedar is too soft and will soak up the blood. You're a charlatan. And if I'm not mistaken, owe our family 30 denarii for subcontracted work that you never paid. What's taking so long? Cried Dismas and Augustus, the two thieves who'd already been hoisted up onto the crosses on either side of Jesus's, and were now twisting in the sweltering heat. Get on with it! We're not exactly up here for the fresh air. Yes, get on with it, murmured the people, growing more bold as they began to crowd in, bloodthirstiness getting the better of them. But Jesus was not one to be put off. James, my elder brother, come forth. But come forth, he commanded in a ringing tone. Summoning his sibling from the crowd, James shuffled forward, looking somehow both older and younger than his famous sibling, more meat on his bones, a well-kept black beard, but eyes that were tired, as if he'd not slept in many days. James, cried Jesus, don't forget, this man owes us 30 denarii, write it down. Yes, Jesus, said James dutifully, but didn't have anything to write with. The centurion looked at James imploringly. Can you please tell him to get up on the cross so we can begin hammering him in? I'm asking, please. He has to be up there for some hours before the sun goes down or the torture won't work. No, stated Jesus, this is not a regulation cross and has been flimsily constructed by a charlatan. Here, you can see where the grain isn't planed properly. Jesus once again thrust his bloodied finger at the cross. I must have a cross constructed by a guild member. Your empire runs on rules, doesn't it? And I am a carpenter. What would my colleagues say? A man with a smirk and bright gleam to his eyes stepped forward. I am a carpenter also, and he is right. This is not regulation wood. The crucifixion cannot proceed. What would you have me do then? Cried Longinus pathetically. To have word sent to Pilate would eat up a day, and then he would probably have to write to Rome to get them to weigh in. Days will have gone by. I will lose my job. I could just have you whipped again. Whip me again, and I definitely will not get up on that cross, Jesus haughtily said. The centurion again turned to James, imploringly. Don't look at me, replied James. You don't have to live with him. What do you suggest then? Longinus stared at Jesus, tears threatening to cascade down his face. They say you're a man of mercy. Have mercy on me. Yes, we cut costs by hiring a workman who is not a guild member. I admit it, but times are tough. Jesus looked around him at the crumbling centurion, the young Roman soldiers who seemed puzzled and unsure what was happening, the disappointed crowd, and even the griffin vultures who seemed frozen, awaiting Jesus' cue. The whole world was intent and focused on him, and only he, despite the immense pain and torture he had already suffered, seemed sure and still amongst the whirling crowd. He relented. Fine, he said, and then to James, hurry home, fetch my tools. I'm going to need an adze and at least a couple of planes. The nice one, I don't care if Joseph is using it, bring them here, and I shall see what I can do. James began slowly making his way down the hill, kicking aside dry and cracked skulls, grumbling. Either this non-regulation cross goes, or I do, muttered Jesus. I don't know if we have a few minutes, but if you want, you can ask questions or comments. Or
Much better than the
Absolutely.
artificial one, and we can
Absolutely.
see your individual
I think,
self there, I
I think
think.
there's more of an individual stamp or energy that you bring to it when you write. But on the other hand, the other version does feel like a cousin of mine wrote it. A cousin of mine.
Not a favorite cousin.
So, Koom, I've thought a lot about this. I've got some very strong feelings about the ChatGPT. Frankly, I think it's a parlor trick.
Yeah.
But, and I thought this for a long time, and I think this is the proof is right here in the comparing of the two versions. In university, there were these services that would write an essay for you, right? And I had a friend who bought several essays. One of the things that you could do is buy an essay that was actually written for the subject, or you could get one custom made. And he showed me one of the custom made essays, and they were very mechanical. Yes, they answered the question and they got at, the topic, but they were very mechanical. They were kind of, they did the minimum, the basics. And I feel that the imitation, the ChatGPT Koom, is exactly that. It's a pale imitation. It does the bare minimum, but it is not a unique and creative and live written piece, which is what you read the second time.
Somebody in the crowd talked about how it's very mechanical and it does not feel live. I do think the thing that ChatGPT is struggling with is replicating actual style, because it seems to have a generic style for doing creative writing, which it maybe tweaks a little depending upon other people's styles, whether to lengthen the sentences or not. But yeah, I think a real Turing test that might be interesting for me is not whether it can develop a relationship with somebody, because that's already happened in some sense at least. You have to acknowledge there's lots of people who believe they're in relationships with ChatGPT, and not whether it can write. We can see that it can write jokes. It can also write something with a double meaning, right? So there is a kind of a level of consciousness it's achieved. But to me, I collect some really odd stuff. I collect production material that goes into the making of comics before things went digital. What might be an interesting Turing test is, can AI collect something? Because to collect something, you have to have a very unique fascination and almost like an obsession with something, you know. So I think that might be kind of interesting, and that's also a repository for the energies that kind of come out of my love for certain things and what's gone to influence me. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to say, like, I think there's sort of this idea of human consciousness. There's the old kind of, almost like a classical idea that we're made in the image of God, but we're much more inferior. So, like, if you read Hamlet, for example, Hamlet says, you know, we have this stuff in us that we are like a god, but we kind of fall so short of that. And then the other side is sort of like we're just these deterministic creatures, right? Like we're just biological RNA and DNA that sort of determine who we are. And to some degree too, I do subscribe to that. Like I do think in some ways I'm like a machine, but the machinery is creative and I can feel it kind of kicking into gear and rolling. I think somehow AI is somehow between these things. And I'm not interested in AI because I don't intend to write with it or something like that. But I'm interested in what that says about us and our consciousness. I think for the last generation, social media was sort of like this dark mirror you could use to hold up to society or people, and you see sometimes the worst aspects reflected and amplified. I think AI is going to be like that, but in a different way. I don't just mean it's going to create bad outcomes. I think it's going to be an interesting mirror for consciousness and who we are in the way we interact with it, but also just what comes out of it. And that's what I'm interested in kind of exploring, I think, to some degree in the next book. Anyway, I can see Gavin's looking at something.
Yes, I'm conscious of the samosas. You can actually accost Koom personally. And asking a bit. Thank you, Koom. I didn't want to give us any from the samosas any longer, but I'm sure everyone's feeling a little bit English. So samosas are ready downstairs. Have yourself some wines and samosas. We will be 10 minutes on this break, and then we will gather back here again. Don't worry, I won't let you forget. I will yell when it's time to come on back. All right? So head on down.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Koom, for a very entertaining diversion, as promised. Let's stop.